Anjali had always believed in the quiet stability of her life. She lived in a charming suburban neighborhood in Chicago, where manicured lawns and friendly neighbors created an illusion of perfection. To the outside world, she and her husband, Raj, seemed like the ideal couple. Raj was ambitious and successful, often traveling for work, yet always returning with stories that painted him as devoted and loving. Anjali, proud of her Indian-American heritage, balanced her career and household with grace, managing every detail with precision. She believed in trust, in loyalty, and in the kind of marriage where small acts of love were exchanged daily. Her world was one of careful routine, warm dinners, and whispered dreams for the future. She trusted Raj with her heart and life, never imagining that the foundation she had built was already cracking beneath her feet. It began as a normal evening. Raj had left his phone unattended on the kitchen counter while making a hurried call, and Anjali, curious about a series of unusual notifications, picked it up. What she found shattered her sense of reality. Messages, photos, and secret plans unfolded before her eyes, revealing a betrayal she never expected. Her husband, the man she had shared her most intimate dreams with, was involved with another woman. The shock was instantaneous, like a sudden cold wave that drained her strength and clarity. At first, she could not believe it, her mind rejecting the evidence as impossible. Her heart pounded, her thoughts raced, and a deep sadness threatened to overwhelm her. Yet, amid the swirling pain, a quiet spark of determination began to flicker. Anjali realized that succumbing to despair or confronting Raj immediately would only leave her vulnerable. The betrayal was real, and acting impulsively could destroy her sense of self. Instead, she chose to observe, to gather knowledge, and to regain control over her emotions. She spent hours sitting in her favorite chair, replaying the moments she had thought were signs of love and commitment, analyzing them with a new, painful clarity. She remembered the smiles, the promises, the warmth she had shared, and saw them now as layers hiding deception. Every detail mattered. Every pattern mattered. She understood that knowledge and patience would be her weapons. As the evening turned to night, Anjali began to consider her options. Her life, once predictable, now demanded courage and cunning. She reminded herself of her worth and refused to let betrayal define her. A plan was not yet formed, but the first steps were already taking shape, understanding, observing, and regaining control. Though her world felt fractured, she sensed that from this destruction could emerge strength, clarity, and purpose. Anjali went to bed that night with a mixture of heartbreak and resolve. The journey ahead would test her, but she knew that the woman Raj had underestimated was already preparing to rise from the shadows of deceit, ready to reclaim her dignity and life. The morning after discovering Raj's betrayal, Anjali moved through her day with a strange combination of calm and intensity. Outwardly, she carried on as usual, preparing breakfast, managing household chores, and attending to work commitments. Inside, however, her mind was sharp and focused. She understood that the moment of shock had passed, and now the real challenge was gathering information without revealing that she knew the truth. Every step had to be deliberate, every observation carefully noted. She watched Raj closely, noticing small patterns she had never paid attention to before. He would leave his phone in certain places, reply to messages at precise times, and follow routines that seemed ordinary but now appeared suspicious. Anjali began documenting everything, writing down times, behaviors, and locations. She knew that knowledge was power, and her power lay in understanding exactly what had been happening behind her back. At the same time, Anjali focused on herself. She understood that to confront betrayal effectively, she needed not only strategy but also confidence and composure. She spent extra time on her appearance, dressing with elegance and poise that reflected the inner strength she was cultivating. She revisited hobbies she had neglected, exercised, and connected with close friends who offered subtle support without prying. Every action was intentional, a reinforcement of the woman she was determined to become, someone unshaken by deceit, someone whose life could not be dictated by another's betrayal. She could feel a transformation occurring, a sense of empowerment growing with each careful step she took. Observing Raj and his mistress required patience. Anjali discovered patterns that revealed more than just the affair itself. She noticed how Raj avoided certain questions, how he used coded language in texts, and how he adjusted his schedule to accommodate secret meetings. Even the mistress, who seemed confident and untouchable, revealed weaknesses in her interactions. Anjali catalogued every detail, every hint, understanding that the smallest observation could become crucial. This was not a pursuit of revenge and anger but a meticulous strategy to reclaim control. She reframed her pain as clarity, her heartbreak as insight, and her anger as fuel for intelligent action. By the second day, Anjali had also begun envisioning what her life could be without Raj. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to consider freedom, independence, and self-reliance. She explored practical options, including legal avenues and financial planning, preparing for a future where she would not be constrained by betrayal or fear. Each thought strengthened her resolve, turning despair into determination. As evening approached, Anjali felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not acted rashly, but she had regained a sense of control that Raj could not touch. She was no longer merely a wife betrayed, she was a woman. Observing, learning, and preparing. The spark that had ignited on the night of discovery now burned steadily, a silent but potent force. Every glance, every note, every subtle action contributed to a plan that would unfold in the days to come. Anjali went to bed with her mind racing, not with panic or sorrow, but with strategy. The quiet observation had strengthened her more than she expected, and the next chapter of her life, the chapter where she would confront betrayal on her own terms, was beginning to take shape. By the third day, Anjali had turned observation into strategy. Every piece of information she had collected became a thread in a larger tapestry she was weaving carefully. She no longer felt the raw pain of betrayal, it had transformed into clarity and purpose. Raj continued his routines, unaware that his carefully hidden world was being mapped with precision. Anjali studied his habits, his language, and even his subtle emotional shifts. She catalogued interactions with the mistress, noting locations, timings, and behaviors that would later reveal the full scope of deception. The more she learned, the more confident she became, realizing that power did not come from confrontation but from knowledge and preparation. Anjali also refined her own image and presence. She understood that strength was as much about perception as it was about action. She chose her clothes with care, projecting confidence and independence in every step. Her posture, her voice, her mannerisms, all became tools in a transformation that no one around her suspected. At work, she carried herself with renewed authority, impressing colleagues who had long known her diligence but now saw a subtle new intensity. At home, she maintained the facade of routine, preparing meals and performing daily chores, all the while knowing that the house itself had become her stage for a larger plan. Each interaction with Raj was carefully measured, revealing nothing of her knowledge while subtly asserting her own awareness. In parallel, Anjali began building contingencies. She connected discreetly with trusted friends who could provide support if needed, and she reviewed legal options, ensuring that any confrontation would be backed by preparation and protection. She knew that when the time came, she could act decisively without fear of retaliation or vulnerability. Financial independence became another priority. She reviewed savings, investments, and personal accounts, reinforcing the foundation she would rely on to reclaim her life fully. This preparation was not motivated by anger but by the desire to protect herself and emerge stronger. Beyond the practical, Anjali focused on mindset. She spent quiet moments visualizing a future in which she was unshaken by deceit, unbound by betrayal, and fully in control of her destiny. Each visualization reinforced her determination, transforming uncertainty into a sense of inevitability. She realized that Raj and his mistress were playing their roles in a story that she alone could control, and that knowledge gave her a quiet thrill. Patience became her ally, observation her weapon, and planning her shield. She no longer felt like a victim, she was an architect of her own life, constructing a path that would lead to justice without sacrificing dignity. By nightfall, Anjali felt a profound shift within herself. The fire that had sparked with shock now burned with precision and intelligence. Every step she had taken, every detail she had recorded, every decision she had made had prepared her for the moment when she would move. The betrayal that had once left her shattered had now become the catalyst for transformation. Anjali went to bed with a sense of calm purpose, knowing that the next day would mark the beginning of action. She had spent 3 days in silent preparation, and in those days, she had not only learned about Raj's deceit but also discovered the strength within herself to turn heartbreak into empowerment, setting the stage for a reckoning that would leave no doubt about who held the real power. The 4th day arrived with a quiet intensity that Anjali had never felt before. Every detail she had observed, every note she had taken, and every step she had meticulously planned now converged. She had spent 3 days preparing herself, both mentally and practically, and the moment to act had finally come. Her movements were deliberate as she went about her morning routine, projecting calm and normalcy. Raj, oblivious to the storm building just beneath the surface, carried on as if nothing had changed. Anjali's careful observations had revealed exactly when and where he met his mistress, the patterns of his excuses, and the subtle vulnerabilities he exhibited when caught between lies. She knew this knowledge gave her the upper hand, and she intended to use it with precision. Anjali began by sending indirect messages that revealed she knew more than she let on. She ensured that these messages would reach both Raj and the mistress without exposing herself directly. Each word was chosen to create tension and uncertainty, making them question how much she had discovered. She carefully avoided confrontation fueled by emotion. Instead, every action was calculated to reveal the truth while keeping her dignity intact. Anjali's goal was not to humiliate out of malice but to assert control and make them face the consequences of their choices. As the day progressed, she orchestrated circumstances to ensure that both Raj and his mistress would encounter undeniable evidence of the affair. She left traces of documented messages and subtle proofs in places where they would be discovered naturally, creating a chain reaction of revelation. Her strategy relied on patience and timing, ensuring that when the truth surfaced, it would strike with clarity and certainty. Anjali watched as the cracks appeared in the carefully constructed facades of both her husband and the mistress. Anxiety replaced confidence, uncertainty replaced deception, and both were forced to confront the reality they had tried so hard to conceal. Throughout the day, Anjali remained composed, her face serene, her posture unshaken. She observed from a distance, allowing the evidence to speak for itself. The power of her preparation became clear as she saw the reactions unfold. Raj, confronted with undeniable proof, could no longer hide behind charm or excuses. The mistress, realizing that her secrecy had failed, faced the consequences of her choices. Anjali had designed every step so that the revelation was public enough to ensure accountability but subtle enough to avoid chaos. She had turned her heartbreak into a masterclass of strategy, showing that intelligence and patience could achieve what anger alone never could. By nightfall, the results were evident. Raj and his mistress had been forced to confront the truth, and Anjali stood apart, unshaken and dignified. The shock that rippled through both of them was profound, but Anjali experienced a different emotion entirely, a sense of empowerment. She had turned a painful betrayal into an opportunity to reclaim control, proving that patience, planning, and self-respect were far more powerful than any impulsive act of revenge. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel a quiet satisfaction. The 4th day had been the day of revelation, and in doing so, Anjali had not only exposed deceit but had also asserted her strength in a way that would shape the days to come. She went to bed knowing that the final day of her journey would be one of renewal and rebirth, where her true power would fully manifest. The 5th day dawned with a sense of finality and quiet triumph. Anjali woke with a calm determination, the kind that comes from having faced betrayal, observed carefully, and executed a plan with precision. The chaos of the previous day had settled, leaving a clarity that filled her with confidence. Raj and his mistress were forced to confront the consequences of their actions, and Anjali finally allowed herself to shift from strategist to fully empowered individual. She moved through her morning routine with deliberate grace, each gesture reinforcing her independence and reclaiming her sense of self. The house, once a space of hidden lies and deception, now felt like her domain, a place where she had regained control over her life. Anjali spent the day consolidating her newfound freedom. She took stock of her finances, ensuring that every account and investment reflected her autonomy. Legal consultations confirmed that she was fully prepared for any steps Raj might take, but the knowledge gave her reassurance rather than fear. She had built layers of protection, combining intellect and preparation to secure her independence. Beyond practicality, she focused on personal empowerment. She exercised, prepared nourishing meals, and spent time indulging in creative pursuits she had neglected. Each act was a celebration of self-reliance, a declaration that she no longer required validation from someone who had betrayed her trust. The reactions of those around her only strengthened her resolve. Friends and family, once unaware of the deception, began to witness the transformation in her demeanor. Their admiration was quiet but palpable, a recognition of strength and dignity in the face of profound betrayal. Anjali realized that her journey was no longer just personal, it had become an example of resilience and empowerment. She reflected on the 5 days that had passed, the initial shock, the careful observation, the strategic planning, the execution of her revelation, and understood that each stage had been essential. Each step had taught her patience, clarity, and the value of measured action over impulsive reaction. By afternoon, Anjali allowed herself to dream again. She envisioned a life shaped by her own choices, free from manipulation or deceit. The future was wide open, full of possibilities she had once taken for granted. She made plans for travel, for career growth, and for deepening her social connections. Every vision was rooted in independence, a life defined not by betrayal but by strength, wisdom, and self-respect. The shadow of Raja's deception no longer loomed over her, instead, it had become a catalyst for growth and empowerment. As evening fell, Anjali reflected on the transformation she had undergone. The woman who had discovered a hidden betrayal 5 days earlier was not the same woman now. She had turned heartbreak into strategy, shock into action, and deception into empowerment. Her dignity remained intact, her self-respect reinforced, and her independence absolute. The ordeal had been painful, but it had revealed an inner strength she might never have known otherwise. As she prepared for bed, Anjali felt a profound sense of closure and rebirth. The chapter of betrayal was over, and a new chapter of self-determination, courage, and empowerment had begun. For the first time in years, she felt fully in control of her life, knowing that no one could ever undermine her sense of worth again.